Hello and welcome to part 2 of the tutorial for making this coin purse. In this part I will talk about the pattern, how I draw such patterns, how to read it and how you can create your own. Also, of course, I will show you how to string beads according to the pattern. In the previous video I talked about what we need for making such a purse. And then in the next part, in the next videos, I will cover how to crochet the pieces, how to sew them together, how to sew the lining, and finally how to sew the frame. So here we go! I designed this pink pattern for you. You can download it for free. You can find the link in the video description down below. You often ask me where I draw patterns like this. There is no specialized software for these different shapes, or at least I don't know about it, so I have to improvise a bit. I mostly draw online at crochetbeadpaint.info or I use JBead software. You can find the links down below. If you look at the pattern, you can always find the pattern information up here. What beads to use, how many basic rows the triangle has, information about the recommended hook and thread, and there's a link to my tutorials. The information itself about stringing the beads and the markers I used in the pattern. We will get to that in more detail. And down here there is information about the amount of each color of beads, what letter they are marked with in the pattern, information about amount in grams, and color recommendations including the bead codes. If you are looking for a specific bead color, it's easy to search by this code. On the next page you can see a graphic presentation of the pattern. For us, this second part is probably the most telling at the moment, where you can see what it actually looks like without the gray background and the stripe, of course. And here I always show what one separate triangle looks like with and without each color marking. On the following pages is the stringing order. We will string the beads on thread accordingly. And I have added some markers. I will talk about that in a minute. Sometimes I get a question from you, where do I get these patterns? Did you try to create your own pattern in the programs I recommend, but your pattern looks completely different? How is it possible that there is so much information there? I have marks and so on. Well, I do it all on my own. The output from the software itself looks like this. You can see that there's just a graphic visual on one line. Then some information that doesn't make sense for this type of pattern at all. That information would be valid if we were drawing a pattern for a bead crochet rope, but since we have a completely different shape, it doesn't apply. And then we have a list of the beads. That's correct, except there's no markings for the individual markers. So when you compare the two patterns, you can see that I'm adding a lot of information. So even if you buy a pattern from me on Etsy, you won't get the automatic output, but you will always get a PDF edited by me with a lot of extra information. Not every seller does that. And now for the pattern itself. A beginner who can only read patterns for bead crochet ropes would probably have a bit of a problem with this type of pattern. I have some background here because I can't do it other way. Some incomplete rows of beads up here. Two types of markers on the side here to make it easier. But once I explain what it's all about, you will easily understand. The foundation of the pattern is such a triangle. Each side has 20 beads. And we basically put 7 of these triangles together and crochet it. If you have searched for patterns like this on Pinterest, you will have come across that they don't have complex patterns like the one I've showed you a while ago, but you will find just this one triangle. And that's quite enough. You can also make it based on that one triangle if you already know how to do it. I like to draw the whole thing this way, because then I add the markers, which makes my job much easier. My point is basically that this way the program generates the whole list of the beads, and I don't have to do anything when stringing. You are less likely to make a mistake that way. If you are asking if it always have to be 7 triangles, no, it doesn't. It can also often be 6 or 8, but then the coin purse looks a little different, so I will cover that again next time. Same with the 20 beads triangle side length. It can be bigger or smaller, but then again the pattern would have to be adjusted for the size of the frame, so I will show you that again in another video. It's not just about adding beads, there are some other tricks to make it look good. I wouldn't say there's a one-size-fits-all formula for this, but each pattern needs to be adapted. Often you need to try it out directly to find the best solution. Okay, so if we only had this one triangle as a pattern, we would string the beads from right to left and from top to bottom, like this. And since we have 7 triangles, we will string each row 7 times. So I'm gonna string all these first rows of 7 triangles, then all the second rows, and I'm gonna go all the way to the middle. But it's useful enough for me to know where one row ends and the other begins, so I know which loops I'll be increasing the triangle in as I crochet. That's why I added this pink marker at the end of each row. So when I hit the pink marker in this bead list, I know that I'm moving on to the next row and how many beads I have to crochet before I crochet the 2 beads into one loop. That's where I'm going to increase the triangle. The rule itself is simple. When you crochet 2 beads into one loop at the end of each triangle. But you can easily get lost in the pattern, miscount the beads or string them wrong, and then you can get completely lost. The markers will help you to find your way around the pattern better. As you can see, I still have black markers here. They separate these 4 extra rows. Well, we have to attach the frame somehow, so in addition to these 7 triangles, I have crocheted this part without beads. These are 4 rows that I'm going to hide in the frame. And these 4 rows of beads that make up the thickness of the coin purse itself. As you can see, the rows with beads partly overlap into these triangles. What's another change is that when I crochet these last 4 rows without beads, I normally increase in the corners. But when I crochet these last 4 rows with beads, I don't increase in the corners. And at the end of each triangle, I only have 20 beads in last 4 rows each time. Plus there are 3 extra beads on each row on either side. That way the edge curves in. And I have all this already reflected in my pattern, so you don't have to think about it and just thread on all the beads you have in the bead list here. Of course, you skip all the gray beads because that's just the background of the pattern. Start adding the beads from the edge and crochet from middle outwards. So if you look at the bead list, you string 83 pink beads, then 3 more pink beads, and then a black marker. And again, 83 and 3 and black marker. There are 86 beads on each row. 20, 40, 60, 80, plus here 3 beads on each side here. And so we continue until the end of the list. Always string from top to bottom, left to right, and page by page. When we get to the very end, we'll have strung beads for this whole 1/2 of the coin purse. When you come across this pink marker, instead of a bead, you string a paper marker on which you write a red number, in this case 18 plus 2. This means that when you come across this marker, you will crochet 18 beads, 1 bead in each loop, and then 2 beads in the same loop. And you always repeat this 7 times because there are 7 triangles in the pattern. Once you have done that, you'll always hit another piece of paper. That way you can keep checking that you are crocheting correctly. There aren't that many beads in 1/2, so I string and crochet this one part at a time. All this corresponds to this part. If I had a longer pattern, like 40 beads, this is 20, if I had 40, I would split the stringing into parts. The way to do this is to divide the pattern in any given place. I will divide it, for example, this 2 pages will be one part, and the page 3 and 4 will be the second part. So I divided it roughly in half. So we string that part first. Again, the same rule apply, top to bottom, left to right, page by page. Then work that part, crochet it, then thread this part, the first part, page 1 and 2, and thread it again according to the same rules and crochet it. So from top to bottom, left to right, and page by page. We can simply add a new thread as many times as we want. If you want to watch a short tutorial on how to do it, the link is up here. It's also useful in case you break the thread, string the beads wrong, etc. To better understand that, if you look at our basic triangle, we string, for example, this part, crochet it, and then we string this part and crochet it again. It's very simple. Okay, I strung all my beads. If I lay it out with the text, it looks like this. Here you see the 4 extra edge rows, and here are the triangles themselves, as the number of beads gradually decreases. I will show you the crochet itself in the next part of the video. If anyone wants to support my work, I'd be happy if you subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye!